So the hardest part of any implementation or change management is the messy middle. It's when you go from creation stage to daily operation implementation stage. And that's where the power of ritual. Did we incorporate it into meetings? Are we pulling it up every time we talk? When we do, strategic reviews, do we have the strategic goals in ClickUp and are we looking at it and are we checking things on or off? That ritualization creates those new habits, those new behaviors, and it helps us to unlearn other rituals and behaviors that we've done over time. I can't know, can I?
You can't know what we're talking about before we talk about it. That's the
Oh,
whole
fun.
deal.
That's right. I did say that that was fun, so I'm sticking to it.
How are you about surprises generally in life?
Depends upon the nature of the surprise. I don't mind surprises. I think generally speaking, people don't like surprises, especially if it's a negative surprise. But I don't know. I wouldn't say I'm a person that minds surprises. I like challenge a lot. Part of why I like the surprise of what we're talking about is challenge makes me excited most of the time. How about you? Do you like surprises?
I love
Birthday
surprises.
surprises, maybe?
Love surprises. I love birthday surprises. I love all sorts of surprises. Yes, sure, negative ones are not great, but
Yeah.
no, it is my husband's birthday this week, and I have planned many a surprise. And same thing for really any birthday that I get to celebrate. Like I love throwing a party, and I love making people like reminding people of how much I think about them when they're not with me.
Oh, that's sweet. That's
You
actually a
know?
really sweet, that's a sweet reason for it.
Yeah, it's fun. My mom is really great at it. She's always been very good at it, so I feel like I got it from her.
Did you ever have an epic surprise growing up that like solidified this for you?
Oh yeah. So I grew up riding horses and it's like my first love. And for my 16th birthday, I thought I was getting a phone for my birthday, like a cell phone. And yes, that happened back in the early aughts. We didn't get cell phones until 16, even though some days or now people get cell phones even younger. And my parents showed up at the barn where I had just had my lesson and they were like, "Surprise, you're releasing a horse instead of getting a phone this year." And I was enthused. I was
Yeah.
perfectly content to not have a phone for another year.
That's awesome. Well,
Um,
if you were
yeah.
a child of the 90s like I was, the first cell phone I had, I think I was 22, 21, and it was a green screen
Hmm.
and text messaging wasn't really a thing as much at that point. Like you actually used your cell phone to make phone calls, which I don't know many people that do that much anymore. So, yeah, different era, different time, but
Yeah.
fun adventure either way.
Yeah, for sure. Well, so for today's surprise, we
Ooh.
have a use case or scenario. So, listeners who are joining us for the first time, what we do on the show is, especially this season, is I have prepared some example use cases, case studies for Dave to react to. And basically, these are mocked up after real clients and real struggles that we've seen. And this is how we would suggest those are addressed and dealt with. So today we are going to talk about a fake based on real company called North Star Creative. North Star Creative is a 30-person branding and marketing agency. They have been growing pretty quickly and things are starting to feel a little chaotic. There's some missed deadlines, some communication issues, people are feeling pretty stretched. And recently they decided like, yeah, we kind of need like a big boy system. We need processes. We need like to keep ourselves organized in a better way. So they brought in a consultant and they implemented ClickUp
Ooh.
as their project management tool. And they layered in some OKR style goal setting to try to create more structure for their team. And honestly, the rollout went pretty well. They had templates built, they trained the team, they set up dashboards, they made goals for each department. Like it seemed like they did the work up front. But now, 6 months later, here's what it actually looks like. So ClickUp is being used as like a to-do list. So not like a full project planning system, just kind of like a checklist of items. A lot of tasks, most still live in Slack and email and people just remembering things. Dashboards exist, but good luck having a leadership look at them. The OKRs were set at the beginning of the quarter, but they haven't really been touched since. And some of those teams in their company are like super all in. We're using ClickUp. It's in our day to day. And then some people are like, nope, I'm sending to-dos through email. I can't and won't learn. And I'm just not a ClickUp person. I'm just not a ClickUp person. Those kind of people. One of the leaders said, like, I feel like we bought this really powerful system, but we're maybe using like 10% of what it can actually do. And it's really frustrating that some of my team, I can rely on them to use it, and some of them I don't know where they are when they're tracking their work. So things are back to a little bit of chaos, even though there's kind of this like sort of pretty lie that we have this updated system now. So my question to you is, where would you start with them?
I feel like I should be asking you this question. Uh,
Probably.
yeah, so lots of different spaces that it comes in to the question, and the metaphor that was popping into my head was this feels a little bit like buying land, getting a construction loan, building a new house that you really are excited about building, and then continuing to drive down the old road to your old house most of the time, and every once in a while going to visit the new place. Right? Like you spent all this time, energy, and effort working on the project of implementing ClickUp because it is a project, it's a massive undertaking, and one that requires thoughtfulness and creativity and systems building and teams to work together and push through. But the building phase isn't necessarily the hard part, it's the exciting part. The maintenance phase, the ongoing usage, and the day in, day out, we're building habits and formulas and new ways of, well, not necessarily new ways, but systemic ways, kind of consistent ways of operating is where the real resistance and the behavior change shows up. That's why I use the analogy of driving to the new place, right? And if you lived in a place for 20 years, it's hard not to take the left turn that you've always taken as opposed to taking the right turn that you need to take now to go do the new thing. You have to build a new habit. You have to see it differently. You're kind of accessing a different part of your brain. And if you don't see the benefit, you don't see the why, you're not still excited about it in some way, shape, or form, that behavior change gets hard. So some of my questions would be, okay, well, what was the team's engagement in the creation and implementation and design of it? Number one. Number two is what measures did they take to think about clarity, like why are we doing this, and invest people in that portion of it? Number three, in what ways did they socialize it and integrate it into how they currently operate? And instead of building it as something over here, building it into the way they currently operate and already identify, like, well, what habits do we already have? So how did they play that game? And then maybe the fourth thing is how are they continuing to socialize and incentivize the new habit and formation of it? Those are probably the four questions that pop into my head right away around it. But you've done this far more than I have in terms of specifically implementing ClickUp and seeing different things. What are the questions that you have?
Yeah, I think the second two of what you just said are the first things that would come to my mind if we were talking to the client on call right now, would be how are you putting it in front of them every day? How are you requiring them to integrate it every day? And then following up on, for example, are you pulling up a ClickUp list every time you get together with your team to make sure that all the tasks are in there and updated? Are you messaging each other through the system and not falling back into Slack? Are you holding people accountable to actually having it integrated? Because, yeah, when I work with teams and especially the leaders of those teams who are like, we really want this, great system. We see how impactful it is and how it could keep us so much more organized and we can put all things in one place. That's so great. Their enrollment is very, like, think about it very short term instead of like a long term play. Because any kind of change with any group, as we all know, it takes a while to really stick. And if you focus on it like a short term, it's a new pen that we're all going to write with. Well, okay, but like people will grab a pen, use it for a couple days, and then they'll leave it on their desk. But like if you in every meeting or before every project or like, hey, does everybody have their pen? Like it's as simple as that of just continuing to be an accountability leader to people when you've especially invested money, hired a consultant, implemented this whole new system. moved things from one place to the other. And yeah, and then I think especially your other point about like why did you make this change? And you do have to kind of bring it up with people like every quarter. Like
Yeah.
why did we do this 3 months ago, 6 months ago? That has to continuously be raised and put in front of people, or they will kind of revert back to the way they were working. I think also if I would imagine this team is probably remote, and I would suggest with something like this, if you can get everybody in person at the beginning and then again a few months into it, so it can be sort of this like shared energy that we all experienced together in adding this new system to our plates or to our lives, our working lives, that stands out to people more than a new app that they have on their computer and then we're not together as people. So I would also kind of suggest like trying to get people together and really feel make this event of it so it feels like you're turning a new chapter.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, honestly, the word that's popping in my head is ritual. How do
Yeah.
we ritualize the use of it? And really the challenge in going from one system to a new system isn't so much the learning of the new system, it's the unlearning of the old way of operating. And
Yeah.
unlearning is infinitely harder than learning, doing something differently. I'm going to use an analogy that we use with clients all the time. We call it, it's not so much the adding or putting ClickUp into play or any project management change is it's not that hard to design and implement truthfully. Like it takes time and it's strategic and you have to do the work of it, but that's not necessarily the hard part. And anytime you're implementing something like that, you kind of go from ideation, which and invention and creation, which is truthfully generally really fun in a work environment, and it feels exciting because there's something new and tangible and real. And then you have to take that and make it something that is sustained over time. And the transition between that ideation, design, creation space and actual convergence, where we are tactical, executing, maintaining, is what we call in kind of the organizing world the groan zone, right? And it's because it's the sound you make when you're in it. We like to refer to it as the Wednesday of summer camp, right? On Monday and Tuesday of summer camp, it's fun and it's exciting, new stuff, new kids, new ways of doing things. You try canoeing for the first time. Oh, it's so great. And by Wednesday, you miss your mom. That kid's mean. You haven't slept in a while. The food sucks and you just want to go home, right? And by Thursday, you kind of punch your way through. And then by Friday, it was the best week of your life. Any change management implementation, anytime you're implementing a new system, you really truly follow the same pattern. It's fun, it's exciting, it's interesting as you get into it, it's new, great. But if you don't ritualize and you don't actually get really conscious about how do we integrate, socialize, and create adoption for this transition, and you transition from creation to implementation, you're going to miss a whole lot of people. And then getting them to transition 6 months from now, 8 months from now, a year from now is nearly impossible. So the hardest part of any implementation or change management is the messy middle. It's when you go from creation stage to daily operation implementation stage. And that's where the power of ritual. Did we incorporate it into meetings? Are we pulling it up every time we talk? When we do, strategic reviews, do we have the strategic goals in ClickUp and are we looking at it and are we checking things on or off? That ritualization creates those new habits, those new behaviors, and it helps us to unlearn other rituals and behaviors that we've done over time.
Hmm.
Uh, I'd love, Hannah, if you think about it for a second, can you give me an example of a real, I mean, you've done this in many clients over the years and are working on a few right now. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about the enrollment roadmap, like the enrollment plan that we use with clients to help them during this phase, like as we are putting systems in place and just kind of why that works or why that helps.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so enrollment plans are something that we recommend to our clients, and it basically clarifies like how are you going to approach change with your team? Like what's the plan for the change? And not in a short-term way, but in like a long-term way. And we find that this is the thing that people jump past the most because they think of an enrollment plan as an announcement. An enrollment plan is not an announcement. It is in and of itself an accountability system, a long term practice kind of thing. So Enrollment plan would include the what and the why for the change. So, what's changing and why are we changing it? For North Star Creative, the what is that we're moving into ClickUp, probably from of various amounts of project tracking, probably spreadsheets, Slack, email, blah, blah, blah. We're putting all those into ClickUp now. We got to identify change champions. So you're probably going to know people on your team who are pretty adaptable and excited about something like this, a new system, a new tool. And you're going to clarify with them, hey, you are my change champions. I want you to help me perpetuate the message, me leader, perpetuate the message. This is a good thing. We're going to embrace it. Here's how we embrace it so that they can, like, what's the thing that you like to say about like finding 100 true fans? Like that's way more impactful than having like a follower of thousands. Because if you have 100 true fans of the system, or for this team of 30 people, if they have 6 to 10 true fans of ClickUp, then those people are going to be in every meeting probably across the organization and raise the hand and say, hey, can we pull up ClickUp while we meet, kind of thing. So identify your change champions, understand the impact. As a leadership team, we have to know how is this going to impact your team. And you have to be a good listener to your team to understand how it's going to impact them because a lot of leaders think they know how it will impact them, that instead of sending Slack messages, you'll create ClickUp tasks. But maybe there's other things about the impact that we have to understand so that we can then get people more enrolled. So what's the impact? What's the communication plan? When are we telling them? When is the announcement? This is the announcement piece of an enrollment plan. When is the announcement? And then after the announcement comes out, how are we continuously communicating with them about the system and about the timeline? The timeline in and of itself is a piece of the enrollment plan. What's happening, who owns it, and when. And then the training plan. How are we training people? How are we not only just in the beginning getting them up to speed with what they have to know, but then long term sharing with them more information about this system, maybe even reiterating things they don't know, and also maybe sharing new product updates because a lot of ClickUp, Monday.com, really any of these project management systems, they do have updates that happen. So, how are we kind of making sure that we train people in an ongoing way? And the last two pieces are, I think, like some of the most important. What's your source of truth? So
Mhm.
when there's any kind of change in a team, we want them to have one place they can go check for all of the information about this change. That's where your enrollment plan would be stored. That's where they could go check on timelines. That's where they can go remind themselves of the why, what's the training plan, all that kind of stuff. So what's your like source of truth document or whiteboard or whatever that explains all this? And then what's your celebration plan? How are you going to like celebrate and reinforce that like we have a new thing that we're doing and thank you for jumping on board, dear team, you know? So that is the enrollment plan as we have it outlined. And we design that with our clients at the beginning before we do roll out a change. And then the hope is that I mean, I would imagine a good enrollment plan is gonna, for something like this, changing your project management system would last about a year because that's when you'll know, like we said, like North Star Creative, they're having some issues after 6 months. Okay, it's this time for course correction. That's fine. And then you have another 6 months to make sure that like, is the change gonna stick?
And reiterating and reinforcing. I mean, one of the pieces I heard in there from you is we've ritualized it, but then we're also coming back to it and we're saying, okay, is the system still working? Do we need to update, modify, change, shift the way we're doing this to make sure that's being used? That was uh that was a lot of information. We will share if you're online watching this on YouTube, we'll show a screenshot of it. Otherwise, is there a way we can provide that as a tool, resource, something that somebody can see in the show notes?
Sure, if that's something that you
even
want
just
to
a
do.
even just a list of the content that you just talked through, like here's the questions, like here's the things to pay attention to. As I was listening to it, I'm like, oh, that's a lot to hold on to.
Yeah,
But it is in a nice little form that you can fill out and use as a team. So
yeah.
just
We
want to
can
make
make
sure
it we can make it a downloadable PDF on our website.
that'd be great. I think this all really makes sense. I mean, honestly, I think the core message as you're rolling out anything is not just like, hey, should we do this? Right? Should we roll out this tool? It's being thoughtful about those kind of three stages of implementation, right? Which is the design, creation, and let's build. Then it's the rollout, like how do we roll this out? How do we invest people? How do we ritualize it? And then the maintenance, sustainability, and ongoing development. If you can think about an implementation of a tool, of a software, of a new approach, of a product, if you really have those three components and you're intentional in designing each element effectively, you'll see a pretty significant increase in adoption and buy-in and actual like full implementation. I mean, one of the things you talked about with True North, I think you said they were really only using 10 to 20% of the system. And as we know, if you're using it like a to-do list, might as well just keep the paper on the side of your desk and just write on that. But if you can actually fully implement how powerful some, ClickUp in particular, but how some of these systems are, you can get a lot of value, a lot of benefit out of the organization. The tool isn't the problem, adoption is.
Yeah, absolutely.
So really designing and solving for adoption is the key.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think unfortunately what can happen with a team when they're like half in, half out of a system is often worse than the before of adapting a system because it's like you have a boat full of people and half of them are they've overindulged and they're hanging off the side of the boat, dragging in the water, and so the boat's taking on water. You got to get all those people nice and squarely in the boat, having a safe ride, and really clear on what's expected of them. And so what I would say for North Star is creative is focus on the half out. Focus on those people. How can you either partner them up with the half that are in or to help, reinforce good behavior, or roll out a training plan specifically geared toward those people who are half out and who are not bought in yet and who are still veering off left or right and not actually adhering to the process. And they have to be addressed because if you let it go on, it will permeate the whole culture and it really sucks. It hurts a lot of the money and time that you've already invested into the system. So don't be
Yep.
afraid to address it head on.
Do it to it.
Do it to it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining for another episode of Business Velocity. We will have some resources available for you in the show notes, a downloadable PDF of the enrollment plan, as well as if you are listening to this, we will have this available on YouTube with a presentation to go with it. So feel free to come check that out as well.
Thanks all. Appreciate it.
See you next time.
See you next time.
Thank you for joining us on Business Velocity. Today's insights are just the beginning of enhancing your business's momentum. Don't forget to subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also explore our framework at theevolveddifference.com. And remember, the time is now to take these strategies and apply your learning and achieve velocity. See you next time.